All right. How is everybody today? Guess you're doing great. Awesome. Um, as anybody here has heard about Nix in his life? That's awesome, guys. All right. I thought I would have nobody, to be honest. So yeah, today I'm gonna talk about optimizing Nix. Well, optimizing your Docker images to make it, simpler to know what you have in your containers, have really what you need and everything about it. So let's start ahead and who the hell am I, right? My name is Jean-Francois Labonté. By the way, if you want to ask a question in French, je parle français aussi, y a pas de problème. I am a full stack developer, DevOps, cybersecurity auditor. Well, from recently, I'm a super cybersecurity auditor. I'm working on NIST. Obviously, I'm a Linux enthusiast. Look, I have a penguin on my arm. Also, I like a lot maple syrup, just to say. Just to let you know, I'm an open source contributor. I contributed to Nix. I contributed to many other projects like Ubuntu, Linux Mint, or other projects. And I'm a NixOS aficionado, so I really love that stuff. So I'm really happy to see hands when I talked about Nix. And I'm living the dream, basically. I got a new company called Brighton Labs, which is a company about cybersecurity and using artificial intelligence to protect your assets in the cloud. But I am also, working in companies and having fun with people, and I'm using Nix, so I'm living the dream, basically. Warning for people who never use Nix in its life. I just want to let you know that I'm not responsible if you get into a rabbit hole like this guy, passing 4 days or a month or a week to convert everything to Nix because everything is super easy. You can build your whole system, your whole thing, one shot. It's awesome. But if you come out like this at the end of your journey, it's not my fault. FYI, don't blame me. I'm not responsible for any way you getting stuck in that rabbit hole. So for those who doesn't know what Nix is, what is it? And I want to start off with a little, little anecdote about my colleague that I just started telling him about, Nix and what can it bring and how awesome is Nix and how great it is. And he told me that thing. I'm confused. It's Nix everywhere. It's Nix as a functional language. It's Nix as a package repository. It's an operating system. And now there's a thing called Flake. What the hell is that? So today I'm going to try, really going to try to help you out, understand and try to figure out, what is it, what's going on. So Nix, as I said, is the functional programming language. So it's great. And if you go into functional programming language in your life, you probably heard about side effects. You probably heard about purity of code, which is things that's going to help us do reproducibility that we're going to talk about later on. There's Nix package, and I've shown in an image underneath that they have over 100,000 packages, which is a lot of packages, and they have options and other stuff. And if you get into that world, that's a rabbit hole as well. So Nix package is the package repository, but there's other package repository out there also. There's communities, big community with Nix, which is awesome because if you hit a snag, well, you can go talk to someone in the community and you're gonna have help. It's really nice for that. NixOS is a Linux distribution based on that logic. So NixOS, you're building your operating system with configuration you build. You have your front end, you have your back end, you have your applications for your work. So that's really the whole operating system based on that way of doing stuff, being functional, being pure. And NixOS has a particularity as well that the whole file system, the root, is all read-only, which makes it harder for someone to change configuration on your machine. When you go in Ubuntu, you can go in etc, whatever, and change the configuration of your machine or your service. Well, with Nix, you do it with a configuration file. So basically, the truth is that is in this configuration file, and it's not necessary on the machine. So that's pretty cool. And the last thing is Flake, which is a package manager. I call them steroids and literally steroids. You can build anything. When I say anything, it's anything. Your containers, your APKs, almost your iOS. Well, you can't iOS because iOS is closed source, but anything, APKs for your Android device, working in the front end with Node.js or Python or Rust, Go, whatever, any languages, it can deal with it. It's pretty awesome for this part as well. So the problem I'm bringing here is that containers are safe, right? You don't create a whole VM and everything, right? It's supposed to be safe. Well, depends. Most of the time, the issue I'm seeing is that we are packaging the whole operating system into a container. So basically, we have everything that goes in that container. You got your programming language. You've got the package manager from that particular distribution you're using. That could be Ubuntu, that could be Debian, Fedora, whatever fits, whatever rocks your boat. But compilers, everything in there. It's starting to be a lot of stuff, starting to be crowded in there, and you're paying it with space, and well, it's not something you need necessarily. Like, you really need an LS most of the time in your containers? Don't think so. So we have countless dependencies in there. It's an issue. And another issue I've noticed is that it's not reproducible. If you build a container image, you can do it on your own on your computer. I mean, you see it as well. The hash of that container will change because it's always a new thing. There's new stuff coming in there. There's new dependencies. There's whatever it comes with it. You cannot track your container to have the same hash every single time, the same thing over and over again. So that to me is an issue. And a sequence of mutation. If we stay in the world of functional languages, it's a sequence of multiple mutations, making it your operating system or your app. So you make multiple mutations to get there. And I talked about reproducibility and stuff like that, but why Nix? I mean, I'm talking about Nix. Why would you use Nix? It's a bit more complicated as well, because it's read-only, and you have to go through their files and stuff. It's nice, but it's not necessarily easier. And I talked about reproducibility. I did the test. I built the same thing next to each other. I built a Red Panda server that I'm using just for test, and I did the same exact thing in Nix. So up there, you see the hash. I used a SHA-256. And on the top is the image I built with Nix. So it's always the same hash. Wherever I build it, as long as it's the same input I'm getting in, it's going to be the same output I'm getting outside. Always the same output. But if I do it with Docker, I got something weird happening. As you can see, I have 2 different hash for the exact same thing. I'm just building an image with Red Panda, actually. Red Panda, by the way, is a Kafka alternative. It's a Kafka. So nothing special there, but as you can see, it's a different hash. The other stuff I really like about it, because I'm a Linux guy, but I love to be able to do it on multi-platform and multi-architecture. So in case of Nix, well, we can do it. We can go on RISC, we can go on ARM64, a Linux, Mac OS. I even have a colleague here that uses Windows and uses Nix with it. And it works. It just works. And it's a declarative way. So if you're used to Terraform or other stuff like this and DevOps, that you are declaring what you want, and the OS or the tool will figure out what it has to do to obtain that, well, Nix is your friend for that. And like I said earlier, I talked about the read-only system and stuff like that, and the single source of truth, and also since with Nix you have smaller images and you only package what you need, I feel like it's a safer bet compared to Docker, because Docker, if you go into the image and you can run on the container in prod, where you can do whatever you want, as long if you have the packages you need or you have the package manager, you can do whatever you want with it. I mean, you can install whatever you want if it's not blocked or whatever. So Nix there helps out. So let me show you real quick what it looks like in Nix versus Docker. So that's the Nix version that you're not really seeing well, but I'm going to show you other stuff. But as you can see, it seems quite complicated. There's quite a lot of stuff. But in fact, it's not really complicated to read it when you have it right in front of you, because basically what it's saying is, I want to have the image that is called Red Panda, and I want that version, and then I want that version to be a container. I want it to be my image for my future containers. So when you look at the way with Docker, I mean, I never said it was easier though. So you see it there, 3 lines compared to me having, 20 lines? Yeah, on that part, well, that doesn't help. But you have you can use your hash there. You got a SHA-2256, so you can validate that your image is right. You can, you know what you're getting at the end, which is not the case with Red Panda, with Docker. Sorry. So yeah, you may be looking like this right now. Like, what the hell is this? There's too many lines for the same thing from the other side there. It's much complicated, but it creates the same thing over and over again, so you can SHA it and know if something's wrong in it. So it's to me, it's great value. I did a uh, little thing there, a little demo on my GitHub. I'm going to give you access to my GitHub if you wish to go and look and use it as a template in the future. So I built a simple application, like it's a Go app, nothing too fancy. I do a hello world. Wow. So I just wanted to show you how it works when you create your own Docker image using Nix. So you start off with initialize the project. For those that use Nix, yes, I agree. There is other ways to initialize it, and there's tools in the community for Go. I could have used the Go thing. I could have went to Python and used the Python tool with the dependencies and everything. But I just wanted to keep it simple and not go too much into details today. Just really focus on what's really useful. So I ended my project, and what's interesting there is that you have an output. It's really bare. There's almost nothing in there. But what's great is that outputs, basically what you have to understand is that outputs are there to tell you what you're going to build. And later on we're going to see we have inputs, which is the thing you're going to use to build your stuff. So let's see the inputs real quick. So Nix package is back again, and I'm telling it like I want to have NixOS unstable or Nix package unstable, doesn't really matter. And I'm passing it to my inputs, so my inputs, can use it later. I could put a lot of stuff in the inputs. There are other tools you can use. There's stuff to help you out with multi-platform. There's stuff to help you with many things. It's like any programming language. You've got tools you can use. You can initialize any type of tools. You can do whatever you want. So using Nix in this case, and what's nice with Flake, which is a package manager in this case, is that it's going to create a log file, and you're going to know what dependencies you have right now. So you really know what you have, what you're using right now. And if you have any vulnerabilities, it's technically easier because you have it right there, right in front of you in your log file, and right in front of you in your Nix file. So in theory, it should be easier, to know what's going on in there. And in my demo, I wanted to use multi-platform. So in this case, I did it manually, but there's tools to make it simpler. So I've got all the system there. I'm using Linux, I'm using Mac, I'm using both architectures. So theoretically, I could bring it and build it on a Raspberry Pi. I make it run on my Raspberry Pi, or I can use my colleague here, Mac, and run it on our Mac. It doesn't matter, I can make it work. It's right there. And I already tried it on multiple machines because I work in IoT as well. I do some IoT, so building stuff there with that is really easy. I just bring the same thing and just build. Don't have to worry about cross-compiling and stuff. Boom. It's going to do it by its own. And then we got the outputs, and in this case, I've packaged my app. So I just wanted to have a binary in my app, in my image. I wanted my container to only use a binary and not have all the dependencies on it. I didn't really need it. I just need my binary. So as you can see, I'm telling him, well, my package name is going to be awesome API. My version is going to be 0.1.0, and I want to use the source file that I showed you earlier in my GitHub. You give him a hash to let him know, well, that's what you're supposed to have, and if you don't have it, well, don't build it. That's it. And we can build it directly in the terminal in our project and just do a Nix build dot for the context that you are right now, and hashtag awesome API, which is my package, and now I called it up there. I called it right here. So I can build it that way. All right. And now, well, I'm talking about Docker. So let's show you about Docker a bit more. So I'm going to build a Docker image right there. Same logic. I'm building a package. It's a package in theory. So I'm going to tell him, well, I want it to be called container. Use that function there to build it for me. Here's your name. Here's the version I want you to have. Here's the package I want you to use. Here's the entry point I want you to use, and I want you to use my project. I want you to use my binary. I don't want you to use anything else. And command and stuff like expose port. We got all the same thing as Docker in there, by the way. If you want to document your port, like I did right now, right there with expose ports, you can do it. It's documentation, but anything you do in Docker, the thing you can do in Docker, you can do it in Nix as well. And I also ask it to limit itself to 1 gigabyte. A bit much, but I limited it. I can limit the build to make sure it's not too big. So right there, I built it, the container. And what we can see around here is that when I'm building it, I'm building it with the Nix command here, Nix build hashtag container. It's probably too small. It's probably too small. Do you see it right? Or is it too big? Is it too small? It should be better like this, eh? All right. Now we're in business. So what I do, I just tell him to build it, and then I load it into my Docker. Like I would do with anything else you would build. You can build it like this with Docker itself. You can tell him to build me a result, and then you take the result, which is a binary, and then you tell him to load it. You can do the same thing. So Nix is leveraging that to be able to do it. And I load it, and that's it. And I did the same thing with the Docker image, because, what is it, what I'm telling you if I don't show you whatever, I'm proposing you. So as you can see, my Docker image is about 340 megabytes. And I've been nice there. I've used Alpine instead. And as you can see, the Docker image for, using Nix is 46 megabytes. So I've 300 megabytes left. Pretty nice. Well, more or less, more or less. And I did a few tests, just to see what happens if I call my container and ask him to do a CD. Well, it's not going to do anything even for Docker. But if I tell him to do an LS, oops, doesn't exist. And that too doesn't exist. So yeah, it doesn't exist at all. Cannot execute it. I want to use netcat. Not there. What? If you go into Docker, well, it's going to be a different story. CD obviously is not going to be there, but if I do an ls root, can see stuff, can run netcat. Well, netcat's not going to do anything here. We all know it because we're inside of a container and we expose port to be able to, talk to them. But an attacker going into your container, because I have to tell you something. I work in a company here in Quebec, and there was one of my colleagues that was a hacker, and he tried an attack inside of our company. And we built our containers for development with the address 0.0.0.0, colon, and then the port of the database. So like, he could read from anywhere. So the guy found a way to get into the Docker VM machine, and he found his way through the VM machine, and boop, he went into the operating system, the Mac operating system we were using back in the days. So seeing that, I was kind of afraid, and seeing Nix being able to reduce that and remove all of the packages I don't really care about was really a relief for me, to be honest. And knowing that what I knew now, that I didn't knew then, I didn't know then. So things to keep in mind with Nix. It can help you to reproduce the same thing over and over again. It can be an operating system, can be a container, can be a package. As long as what you're giving in the input is the right thing, the output should always be the same thing. So that's the thing. If you tell me like, no, it's not reproducing the same thing over and over again, is it the same input? No, it's not going to be the same thing. You really build what you ask for. Like when you build with containers, at the beginning you go like, I got my Ubuntu suite. I don't have to worry about some stuff. I'm installing my stuff the way I do usually, apt install, whatever. Yeah, I have apt, I have SSL in there, I have a lot of stuff. I have the compiler, I have, well, I don't really like that. So now I really have what I want. You got more control of your dependencies. You use, Nix to give out your dependencies you need with packages. And Flake is a super tool that allows us to have one file and everything in there. Absolutely everything. I also know another parentheses there. I have my whole system at home, all my machines, my company as well, all in Nix, and I can just build it from one machine. I just do my machine. I just have my code. I know everything I have. I have my own packages. I have my environment for my colleague. I have my environment, and everything is there, and I can just build it from my machine there, right in front of me. Any machines that I have on my fleet. So that's pretty cool, in my opinion. So any questions, comments, or even insults? Ah, comme tu veux. Moi, je suis bilingue, pas de trouble. Yeah, you can have distro less. Yeah, but you won't have the same thing at the end, though. You're not gonna have this. You're not gonna have the same checksum at the end. You're not gonna don't know if you got poisoning or whatever on your. So now I can verify that my image is really what it is. As with Docker, I cannot because it changes the date all the time and it changes a few things in the back. So like you end up with a shove 256 like I showed earlier that it wasn't the same. So how can I make sure that I have nothing suspicious in there? That's pretty much my because I know, just like you said, you could go from scratch and use a distro S1 and get rid of that part. Totally agree with you 100%. It's just that what I don't like is that my checksum is not going to be it's not going to be the same every time you're going to build it. That's the only thing. Any other? Oh, yes. You can use Nix on any machine. You can build. You can go on Nix, and there's you can use the CLI, and from there with the CLI, you have a few configuration to do in your home directory, just to let him know that you want to use Flake or whatever. And after that, yeah, you can use it on any machine. I have colleagues that use Ubuntu first before going into that, and I use it on Mac OS, which is nonsense because I'm using Linux stuff. And I have a colleague, like I said earlier, that use Windows, and with Windows, it's got is all package management and stuff with Nix. And if you go into that rabbit hole, there's Home Manager that can help you with your home system, your home environment, and make your home environment being reproducible. You go from a machine to another, you take your configuration, you put it on that other machine, you build it, you got the exact same thing, same packages, same application, everything. Just bring your configuration in and you're good, basically. Yes? Mm-hmm. What do you mean by rootless? Oh, like they do. Yeah, I can change it. I believe so. In my case, it's not. In my case, it's really like really simple, bare bone, and I'm really like rootless, and I have no users, and I don't need the basic user right now. Yeah, the root, the root. Yeah, I could probably add more. Obviously, in this case, it's not. Yeah, it's only root. So the guy coming in like, hey, I got root, but there's nothing to use. So at the same time, any other question? Yep. Any other questions? All right, so thank you a lot for your time, guys. Let's keep in touch on LinkedIn, and